Today we have a guest talking with us about mental health, depression, and things of the like. So it should be a pretty in-depth, valuable podcast for everyone. And Ashley is here with me on the couch.
I'm back.
And Mallori is our guest. Mallori, if you could just introduce yourself, where you're from, and why you're here.
Okay, so I'm Mallori Milhone. Excuse me. I am from Cambridge, and I'm here to talk about the stigma that's associated with mental health and how we just have to change our way of thinking. We have to be aware that it's around us and it's happening to the people we love, and we might not even know it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that being said, I know so many people that deal with mental health on a day-to-day basis, and it isn't talked about enough. And like you told me a little bit about your story, which we'll get into here, but I mean, it sounds like it's unique to you, but it's so familiar.
Right.
You know, it is so commonplace. And depression and anxiety can like literally crumble your whole life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Every avenue. And I know that from personally going through my own bouts of that with, you know, transitioning and all that stuff. If you know anything about me, I was transgender for a decade and went to prison, screwed up my whole life, on heroin, on meth, like a prostitute, like it was bad. And so dealing with my mental health was how I came back from all that, and like really like doing that internal work, which you said you're like on that journey now. So
Right.
I'm excited for you in that
Thank you.
aspect. It's going to be really good as long as you stay with it. I mean, you can change your whole life. I'm an example of that. And Ashley, if you want to chime in a little bit and just say what you've been through with mental health.
Yeah, I think I've struggled with it since I was like 14 or something like that. Always had like, it was like ADHD, anxiety, depression, like who the hell knows what the actual name of it was, but
Right.
it was basically that like I always felt like something wasn't right or like a little bit sad or whatever. And so, I mean, and then I found alcohol and I was like, oh, sweet. Like I can numb my feelings and I don't, have to even think about it. And then I did that for 20 years. And when I was like 34 years old, I basically like decided that drinking was not helping anymore at all. It was, and the basis of it is depression, anxiety. And now, I don't know, my inner healing has become like so thorough and so like deep that, I don't know if I believe anymore almost that it's a disease or if it's just like this deep needing for love and acceptance and
Of self. Yeah.
Right. Connecting to a spiritual self that we all have, and a lot of us are disconnected from it. So
So a part of your story that keeps like playing in my head and that I've thought about since we talked is how you saw, because like she said, like, so medical terms, it says, and we're not doctors here. We're not trying to be doctors. We don't have any medical advice for you. This is a personal story, and that's what we're talking about. But we've both been through similar but different paths completely. But it all related to one thing, which was like value of self, and that ricocheted back into our mental health, which then trickled into our lives and every avenue. So I want to like speak on the part of, I'd like for you to tell me like what you saw growing up. Because you mentioned seeing, and this stuck out to me when we talked.
Yeah.
You mentioned seeing your grandparents on antidepressants and things like that. And you told me a little bit about your grandpa, like in the end of his life and stuff.
Yeah.
And it just stuck with me. And I know we didn't go any further, like when we talked personally, because I really wanted to ask you on camera, because I think it'll be a more authentic, valuable answer.
Yeah.
But I believe patterns we recognize patterns.
Mm-hmm.
Children do it to parents. We do it to our grandparents. All the people we're around, we emulate.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think some of like what we deal with, you, me, Ashley, like my dad was a drug addict. Like like everybody in my family got into drugs. I got into drugs. Like it's pattern recognition, and then you implement that. And so with the thing seeing your grandpa, like you saw him, do you think that affected you? And can you speak on like how you did what you told me about him?
Yeah. So, growing up, he had depression, and that's not the only thing I remember of him. But I mean, he died when I was 17. But a majority of it was he just was in bed. He was sad. He was depressed. And at the time, it was like, well, you don't have anything to be sad about, you know? And I remember hearing that as a kid growing up. Like, we have a beautiful family. We're healthy. We're happy. We're close. Like, what do we have to be sad about? And so it was hard to understand him. And it was almost like, kind of made me frustrated because it's like, we're right here. We're right here. And you choose to be in bed and not, be up and with us. And boy, it was a slap in the face when I finally realized myself, like, there doesn't have to be a reason why.
Yeah. You found yourself in the same exact situation that you didn't understand him so much about.
Yeah.
And so do you, like, and I know you're going on this healing journey and, like, you're, like, really trying to work on yourself. So, like, can I ask, like, do you see that now? Like, and I know you're just getting into this journey, so it's new and everything, but do you, because I think it's important that you do see that quite possibly there's a correlation, that you recognized a pattern and just subconsciously you have implemented it into your own life. And that's not to say that, I can just yank this out. No, it's going to take a lot of work. It's going to be really rough, but you can do it. And like to say, like, I just met you and I really like you, and you don't have to die like your grandpa did. And I know that's a hard pill to swallow, but like times have changed. Information is everywhere. And if like I can bring myself back from hell and she can bring herself back, and like you can turn it around. Right. It's going to take work, and it's going to take a good positive group of people around you, but I believe you can turn it around. So do you recognize that could be how this got into your life? Or do you have another answer for your mental health?
Yeah, so my grandpa didn't actually pass away because of anything mental health related. He actually passed away from cancer. So, but I think growing up, that was kind of the norm. That's what we saw. And I really, really, really tried to just be this happy-go-lucky, I don't know, person that was just always on the go and always doing things, because I didn't want to find myself in that situation. But then when I started having troubles with my mental health, it kind of clicked. Like, okay, now I see it. And I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I really think it's like a pattern. I don't know if I think it's like a generational thing. But it just kind of came into perspective.
When you say it clicked, like, can you break that down more? Like, what do you mean? Like, what does that mean to you?
So my mental health struggles started when I had my son. I had postpartum depression, and a lot of people don't know that. So it's not really something that I like to talk about. I mean, I will completely, but it's just, I don't know. I feel like I was so absent from that time.
When you had the baby?
Yeah, the first 2 weeks of his life were just, I was just not there. I mean, my body was there, but I was just not there. And I look back and I can truly say that is the biggest regret of my life. And I did get help. You know what I mean? So I can't even imagine being someone that didn't say something and just dealt with it. Yeah. And had to, go through that journey by themselves, because I know how hard it was for me, and I had people there for me. Right. So that's kind of when it all hit me, and I realized, like, this is a real thing. Like, this is not a joke. This is not funny. It's not something to joke about. You know what I mean?
And how long ago was it that you had him and had this postpartum?
Almost 9 years.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so common, though.
It is.
I mean, if you could speak on, she's a nurse, and she deals with this a lot. So
I experienced it too. I definitely was not like, oh, this is the best day of my life.
No.
And it was like, holy shit, what is this thing that they just handed me?
Yeah.
And it was like a little bit of like a problem connecting for a little bit and crying and feeling overwhelmed. And yeah, I definitely had some postpartum depression, and it got worse with the second kid. And I don't know, I mean, I know it was like hormonal and everything, but it was also like circumstantial. Like I was just kind of, I wanted to drink because that was my way of soothing myself. And then I wasn't happy in my marriage. I was like married to a military guy. I was living away from home. So I was like doing it alone. I was, but I was letting all these things be like my reason why it's okay to be sad or whatever.
Right.
But I definitely experienced that. And the hormonal shift is definitely like a real thing that I don't know that we have a lot of control over it.
Yeah, it's some kind of chemical.
Yeah. And it's not I don't think like any kind of mental health is anybody's fault. You're doing the best that you can at the time with what you have.
Right.
And sometimes it's not great. It doesn't look pretty. But
it doesn't discriminate. Like I've seen, the best of the best, moms
Yeah.
go through this.
Absolutely. Yeah. So when I was pregnant, I know every mom says this, but like I was just so excited. I mean, I called him BB even before I knew if he was a boy or girl. Like I just embraced it, and I loved every moment of it. And I couldn't wait until he was here. And it seemed like as soon as he was born, I honestly think I might have had trouble adjusting to the fact that he wasn't safe and secure in my body. You know what I mean? Because you go through that anxiety of, oh my God, is he breathing? You walk up to him every 5 minutes, putting your finger under their nose to make sure they're breathing. And I think it was just so overwhelming. And then, trying to breastfeed and, do all the things. And we went to his 2-week appointment, his 2-week checkup, and I was just, a wreck. Like my ex-husband, he would force feed me toast, Jell-O, and milk. And that's what I survived on for 2 weeks. And it was because he made me.
Yeah.
He's like, you have to, because obviously I was breastfeeding. And we went to the appointment, and she looked at him because I was expressing that I didn't want to breastfeed anymore. It was too much. It was just too much. So she looked at him finally and she said, do you want your wife to die? Do you want your baby to die? And of course, no.
Right.
And she's like, you're going to leave here. You're going to go to Walmart. You're going to get bottles. You're going to get formula. And your wife's going to go on medication. And you guys are going to be happy.
Yeah.
And it was just the biggest sigh of relief. Just, I can sleep. Like, I remember just sitting on our couch and looking at bed and being like, I'll never be in there again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you just, you're not rational.
yeah.
So it was a lot of that.
So can I ask, something you just said stuck out to me. Can I ask this about you? Do you feel like if you can't control everything that's going on in your life, you're falling apart?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But I'm also the type of person that, I wouldn't say I'm like OCD, but I have a certain way that I want things to be.
And
whether that be...
But that all, like, okay, so if we take and just define that, that's all, the common denominator is control.
Right.
So you said when we talked, for everybody listening, like, we talked about religion a little bit. You said you were Christian.
Yes.
If I could entice you, like when you walked in here, we're like burning Palo Santo, I called it Palo Alto, and like candles and all this spiritual stuff. Like it's not just for show, like we practice it. And I think I can say this for all of us because it gives us freedom, because we actually do trust in the universe and know that like, even if like a tree falls on us today, everything's going to be fine. There's something divine in it.
Right.
And so if I could just intrigue you to like, I don't know how you feel about it or whatever. I don't want to like push you a certain way, but it's I think all of us have benefited. And I think just looking into spirituality, and it doesn't have to be like a cult or anything like that. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just like freedom of your soul. is one of the most beneficial things I ever
Well,
did. And I think it would help you a lot because
Okay.
you don't have to be responsible for every waking minute of every day, of every problem, of everything in the house, everything in, your husband's life, your kid's life.
Right.
You can actually just breathe.
Right. And I need that because I'm the type of person that if I don't have that control and things don't go according to plan, then I just I lose it.
Yeah.
And I just
Yeah.
shut down and I'm like,
Well, the
Well, then I'm not gonna do
basis of like all 12-step programs, like Alcoholics Anonymous, is that you need to find a power higher than yourself,
yep.
a spiritual connection. And at
Mhm.
first, maybe it's your sponsor and you're like, that's my God. And then it's the
Right.
group of people. And then it's like you start to believe like, oh, I had a God moment where it was like this beautiful moment with my son. And I just felt that like overwhelming love and like safety and everything.
Mhm.
And then you start to believe that like there is something more powerful than yourself. And then, yeah, I mean, I have a sponsor. I talk to her every day. I sponsor other women. And I think that's the only way that kept me on track to like continuing to seek a spiritual life was
Mhm.
that I had spiritual teachers too. And then yoga, of course, to like teach me how to be spiritual, because for some reason it's not a natural thing for
Yeah.
humans to be like, I'm going to meditate every morning and I'm going to pray. Like my life depends on it. And I'm going to,
Well, and I think it's the environment we get shelled out into,
Mhm.
and I mean, we talked about this before, like my parents came from like a generation with no information and getting handed down from their parents what they knew about being a good person. Like you guys got dealt nothing, like
Mhm.
shit. And
my
so
parents were like, went to Catholic school, like grew up in church, and then they were like educated and kind of that like 60s, thing where like they just like, we didn't go to church my whole life. There was no talk about God and it wasn't spiritual. It was like the complete other side of the spectrum. Like everything's science and everything is willpower and you can control everything. And if you work hard enough, you'll get to whatever you need. And that's
Yeah.
not always true, but
yeah, so these generations get handed down stuff.
Mhm.
So the control thing, like it's a means to no end. Like
Mhm.
you're just, I thought I had to be the same way. And I always, like when I came through like getting off drugs and everything, and I was like 27, I'm 30, I'll be 36 this year. I would tell my mom like, it's all your fault. Like,
Mhm.
cause my mom, you described a little bit of like you and your mother's relationship to me on the phone,
Yeah.
and my mom, same thing. Like, what's wrong with you? Like, what's wrong with you?
Right.
Come on, get up. Like, let's go.
Right.
Because she came from a generation, like her mom and dad were like, no affection, no cuddles, no,
Right.
nothing. It was like more beatings than anything. Yeah. So she didn't know how to love. And, it's drastically changed now. But my mom is into spirituality and like, has found herself again. So yeah, anyone can do it. And I hope and pray that you like venture off into your own little like finding of yourself, because that's what it is. That's the key.
Yeah.
so we all have like a moment where they call it like the dark night of the soul or whatever you want to call it, where you like have to go, everything is born out of darkness kind of thing. So do you want to talk about like your moment where you felt like this is my turning point and like your life just,
Got
Do you-
better.
yeah.
Do you want to speak on like what happened the first of the year?
Yeah. Yeah, sure. And I do want to touch on one thing about like my family and my
Go ahead.
spirituality and everything. So I did grow up in a faith-based family. My grandma's probably the most, religious person I know, and just wholesome. She's just a good person. And I think when they grew up and when we grew up, I don't know, we leaned on God. We still lean on God, and I think I kind of didn't do that. And I think that's kind of how everything got ahead of me.
Yeah.
And then when I finally was able to kind of rein it back in and really just truly lean on him, that's what got me through it. I really believe that.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you
Um,
lose connection to gratitude and love, like what is God? God is love, compassion,
Right.
gratitude,
Grace.
faith.
Yeah.
And when you become so self-absorbed and selfish that you lose that connection to gratitude, that's when you become an empty soul, basically.
Yeah.
I think you hit the nail on the head. You said you lost
I lost sight.
that lean on God thing that you were raised around.
Right.
And you take all this responsibility on yourself.
Exactly.
So like now you've literally got the weight of what God does on your back,
Right.
thinking that you could do it.
When I should just give it to him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
do your little part.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, without going into too much detail how it kind of happened, but my husband actually started noticing a pretty drastic change in my behavior, my mood. I was pretty much spending all of my time in bed. If I was asleep, obviously I was in bed. If I was awake, I was still in bed. I had no motivation. I mean, basic, things like getting up and showering or getting up and brushing your teeth or, making dinner. Like it was just the end of the world for me because I had nothing. I had no motivation. And he said to me one time, or multiple times, he said, I think you need to talk to your doctor.
Yeah.
And I remember just getting so pissed off at him and being like, how dare you tell me what I need? I know what I need. But then in the back of my head, I'm like, this is not good.
Yeah.
Like I'm headed down a really, really dark path. But saying that is the hardest part.
Absolutely.
I really believe that.
You got to admit defeat.
Yes.
And for a person that
Yes.
controls everything,
It's hard.
it's hard.
It's hard.
Yeah.
So finally, in January, it just all came to a head. And I woke up one morning. I had my son, my 2 stepsons there, and they were all leaving that day. They were going other places. And I knew today's the day I'm going to end my life. Because I've been thinking about it for 2 weeks. And it was kind of to the point where it's like, listen, if you're going to do it, like, just do it. Just do it. Like, you don't want to be here. You feel like everyone else is better off. Whatever the thought may be that you have.
Yeah. Once you get into a loop like that, it's hard to get out.
Yeah. And this is kind of where, like, now I can look back and see God working in my life again. My grandma, her old car, she just got a new car, but her other car, the gas cap stuck.
Mm-hmm.
So she called me for 3 days in a row. She called and said, hey, can you meet me at the gas station and take my gas cap off for me? I kept putting it off because I didn't want to get out of bed. But you don't say that because you don't want people to know that.
Right.
So she finally called me. It was a Monday. He was at work. And she said, hey, it's been 3 days. Like, can you please do it for me? And she's just the sweetest person. So she wasn't getting on me. She was just reminding me because I'm forgetful. And I said, yeah, I'll do it. And in the back of my mind the whole time I'm thinking, this is the last damn thing I want to do right now. Like, I got things to do, knowing that I had this plan. And I remember thinking to myself, like, damn it, go do it. This is the last thing you're ever going to do for her. This is the last day you'll see her. So I loaded my son up in the car. We went down to the gas station. And when I went to hand her card back, she had a small car. And I had to lean down to hand her a car. And it was like she seen something in my eyes. And she said, hey. And I leaned down and I said, yeah. She said, are you okay? And the whole time I'm thinking, no, I'm not okay.
Yeah.
And I said yes. Right. And I said yes. Yeah, I'm fine. My son said, Mommy, can I get a Happy Meal? And I thought, all right. Again, this is the last thing I'll do for him because, he's leaving in here in a little bit.
Yeah.
And I went through the drive-thru at McDonald's, and the little girl was just so sweet. She just, I don't know, she was just so friendly and just so kind. And she said, have a good day. And I remember thinking to myself, I wonder if she would have said anything differently if she knew what I intended to do that day. And I'm not an emotional person. I don't know why, but I'm just not. I mean, it takes a lot for me to cry. You know what I mean? It takes a lot for me to show my emotion. And I broke down. I just sobbed. And my son obviously is in the back and he's freaking out at this point. Mommy, what's wrong? What's wrong? I love you, Mom. I love you. What's wrong? And I said, I had to come up with something because how do you tell an 8-year-old? How do you tell an 8-year-old that,
Yeah.
And I said, Mommy just has a really bad headache. So, and in that moment, I knew, I can't do this. I cannot do this. Like, I can't. It was like something just clicked in me because I was so dead set on this for 2 weeks. You know, I had a plan.
Yeah.
I knew exactly what was going to happen. And I called my grandma and I said, I lied to you. I am not okay. And I'm having really bad thoughts. And I need you to just come be with me. And what I really needed her to do was just stay downstairs with my son so I could go up in my room and call my husband. And I was so embarrassed that I didn't want to utter those words to my grandma.
Yeah.
I'm suicidal. I didn't want to say that.
Mm.
And it made me sick to my stomach. And it was just like, I didn't want to be around anybody. I just wanted my space. And she didn't give it to me. She sat on my bed and she held my hand.
Yeah, that's the funny part about it all is that you don't want to tell anybody, but guess what? Everybody already knows.
Yeah.
Like,
And they
everybody
know what
knows
you
you're an
need.
alcoholic, Ashley. It's not a surprise.
Right.
You're not breaking the news.
Everybody knows you're depressed.
Yeah,
It's not a
everybody-
surprise.
Yeah. And she sat with me and we prayed. And I called him and I think the reaction that I got out of him and the reaction that we got out of my mom
Mm-hmm.
were the same. They both yelled. That was the first thing they did was yell. But I think it came from a place of so much fear.
Mm-hmm.
I think they were just genuinely terrified
Yeah.
because I think that's the last thing they thought I would ever say, you
Right.
know?
Yeah.
And so I called him and I don't know why this is the first thing I said, but I said, I'm going to kill myself.
Mm-hmm.
And he screamed, no, you're effing not. I said, you don't understand. Like,
yeah.
I'm being serious. And he hung up the phone and he got home and he works a little bit away. And so my grandma just stayed there with me and we cried. I mean, I never stopped crying because I think I finally broke.
Yeah.
Like, I finally allowed myself to feel what I was feeling and to go through with what I needed to do. I needed to ask for help. And
Yeah.
it was shameful.
For
you know?
someone that thinks they have to control everything,
Mhm.
it's a dose of shame if you have to
Yes.
ask for help, or if you have to say I don't have it all under control,
Right.
or if you have to say I'm not perfect anymore.
Mhm.
You
Right,
know.
right, yeah.
Because everybody looks at you and they're like, why the fuck would you pick up another drink after you already went to one rehab? You're about to lose custody of your kids. And if you drink again, and it's like you can't explain it. Nobody can understand.
Right.
But it's
Depression's the same way. Like heroin's the same way. Like
Mhm.
everybody's like, oh, they should just quit and get sober. Like, bro,
Right.
you have no clue.
Right.
You have no clue. It's so, and like, if you look at like your situation,
Mhm.
just like trying to have everything under control. Like,
Trying to be okay.
yeah,
Mhm.
trying to be perfect
Mhm.
in an imperfect world
Right.
is already a lie.
Right.
Everybody's fucked up,
Mhm.
bro.
Right.
Everybody. And that's why I'm like, yeah, prostitute, heroin, meth, like, and now I'm here. That's why I say that, like, proudly, because I want to free people, like, and give them a chance to open their mouth and be like, yeah, I'm not okay there, but I'm working on it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
It is okay to not be okay.
It is fine.
Mhm.
Because the lady teaching your kids at elementary, she's not okay.
Right.
No.
Right.
She's worse off than you probably. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's embedded in everybody. And
That we have to have this like image that we're fine and we have it all put together. And
Yep.
why is it not okay to not be perfect? I tell my son all the time, you're perfect.
Yep.
And he'll tell me, no. And I'm like, no, you don't understand what I'm saying. You're not perfect at everything.
Yep.
You're perfect exactly how you are.
Be yourself.
Right.
and the
That's it.
thing that truly cures that like loneliness and that sadness is connection to people.
Mhm.
And we just isolate, and it makes it work, you know? So
Yeah.
the real healing is when you actually start to like build your relationships in life again with healthy people and with like,
Yep.
you know, spiritually. And I mean, cause God to me is like, I see God in other people. Like that's where I see God is. Well, in yoga, we kind of believe there's like source energy and we are all the same energy and we're just living a human experience. When you start to see people as exactly the same. We're all searching for the same thing, belonging, love, and safety.
Right.
It breaks it down real quick,
Mhm.
and you can see right past their
Yeah.
different, you know.
No, everybody is all different, but the same.
Mhm.
We're all just trying to make it every day with what we have up into
Mhm.
this point. And that's why, like, I was like, we have to do the podcast, and she has to be part of it, and she has to be part of it, because, like, together we bring, like, this collective energy that, like, reaches more people and does more.
Yeah.
And we talk about valuable stuff, and, like, the more people that find out, like, this story,
Mhm.
for instance, is going to not only benefit you from, like, I was more excited about you sitting down and getting some of our energy
Mhm.
to take home with you, because I know that, like, okay, I think, because I believe everything's divine, everything happens for a reason.
Right.
You sent me the message and wanted to be on the podcast, and I was like, you know, like, I was like, well, what for, you know, da 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 da. And then after I, like, felt you out and, like, heard your story, I was like, oh, well, this is, like, real stuff. I
Yeah.
was like, this is good.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, universe, what do you want me to do with this? And it was just like, okay, there's something here for everybody, because
Yeah.
everybody's trying to do the same thing you almost lost your life over.
Right. Mhm.
Everybody's trying to, like, keep up with the Joneses.
Right.
And, like,
Exactly.
outperform everyone
Yeah.
when household debt is at its highest it's ever been. Like, gas is higher than it's ever. Like, everybody's screwed.
Mhm.
We just need to, like, chill.
Right.
And a spiritual path in life is the most freeing thing, because it makes you realize, like, the most important thing is love and gratitude and grace and all that stuff.
Mhm.
And so if your lights get turned off, you can still have love, gratitude, all that stuff. If you get kicked out of your house, you can still take your kids and go somewhere with love and gratitude. Like, it's not the end of the world.
Right.
And then you start studying people that have come back from the depths of hell,
Mhm.
like, at their worst moments in life, which is mostly, like, all the famous people, they've been through
Yeah.
that dark night of the soul.
You start to service the world from a loving, unselfish way. Like, that's what they tell you to do, is, like, go find somebody whose life's worse than yours and ask them how their day's going.
Yeah.
Right.
Stop thinking about yourself, get out of your own way, get out of your own head.
Mhm.
And then you use your pain and your suffering to help somebody else, and it brings meaning to your pain and suffering.
It
And then
does.
you're like, I can honestly say, like, the best thing that ever happened to me was that I hit bottom with alcohol early in life, so that I had this opportunity to service other people with, from a
And we teach, just like you said, service other people, but we teach what we need the most. We go forward and pay service through yoga or podcasting and talking about mental health and stuff, because it's the stuff we need the most. Like,
Yeah.
and that's why I think it's so important for you to, like, tell your story
Yeah.
and speak on your stuff, because it's only, like, sunlight's the best disinfectant. Like, and it's freeing.
Mhm.
It is freeing. You getting in front of your story and being able to actually, like, put a thing in the ground, a flag, and say, okay, we start here.
Yeah.
Like, all this stuff that's been said about me and why I was this way and why I was that, because I'm sure it was there, because
Mhm.
people were like, where's she at? And then here you are, like, hiding in your bed for 3 and 4 days at a time,
Right. Yeah.
And so it's your starting point.
Mhm. It is.
Opening your mouth.
Yeah.
And being able to say your piece.
Yep.
Have you gotten care since the incident at the first of the year with grandma and all that? Like,
Yeah. So when he got home that day, I called my counselor at the time, and she was just the kindest. And it's so silly now, but she was telling me what I needed to do, and the only thing I kept saying is, no, like, I don't want that medical bill, because she kept telling me to go to the hospital. I'm like, I don't want that medical bill. I don't want that medical bill. Like, I don't want to have to do that. And she finally said, would you rather that your husband pays your funeral bill or your hospital stay? And I was
Mhm.
like, well, when you put it like that.
Jesus.
So I was naive. I had no idea what to expect. Nothing. And I kept asking him, like, do you know what they're going to do? What's going to happen? And he's like, I don't know. So then he called my mom, and again, I just felt so much shame. Not that I think my mom would judge me. I knew she wouldn't judge me. I knew she would be terrified, And I think, honestly, I knew she would, like, somehow feel responsible. Not that she is, but just, how did I miss it? People have said that to me since then. How did I not see this? Or, well, I'm good at pretending,
putting on a show.
I sleep beside him every night in bed, and he even said, why did I not know this? Because I didn't want you to know. And so I went to the hospital, and they came in and they said, you will either sign this and voluntarily be admitted, or we will pink slip you. But you are spending a minimum of 3 to 5 days here. No phone, nothing.
And they kept you.
Yeah. And I freaked out. I was like, no, I'm not staying here. Like, I'm going home. I want to go see my, my son. I want to go be in my bed. I want all those things.
Yeah.
They actually put me in the back of a cop car to transport me there. So that was terrible.
I've been in a few.
Oh my God. Yeah, it was. I felt like a criminal. Like, I felt like, what did I do wrong? You know?
Hello, friend.
Right. So, so then I spent the next 3 days in there. I don't know. I think it was like an hour and a half, 2 hours. My family could come visit me every day.
Yeah.
But the first like day and a half, I just had this really shit attitude. Like, I was so pissed that they were making me stay there, first of all.
Yeah.
And second of all, I was like, I don't. Really bad.
Missing control, lost control,
right?
Real quick.
Right? Yeah. But I'm like, I don't want to participate in this. Like, I don't want to. I don't want to do this. I want to go home.
Yeah.
And finally, my husband was like, you have to try. You have to try. Because if you do not try, they're not going to let you come home.
Right.
And I remember sitting in my room by myself in the most uncomfortable bed I've ever been in my life. And I mean, I had truly, that was rock bottom for me. I mean, I was at rock bottom, and I just remember praying like I've never prayed before. And I'm like, God, take this. Just take it. Just take it, because I don't want it. Like, I can't do this. I can't do this. And I thought, I've got to be serious about this, because I can't keep going like this.
Yeah.
And so it was really scary, but at the same time, it opened so many doors, because it allowed me to actually get the help I needed, and not just skate by.
A life-changing moment was when a lady said to me at rehab, she's like, just take the next 2 years for yourself. Don't think about your kids. Don't think about anybody else but you, and get better and heal yourself so that your kids can have a lifetime with you. Because if you don't do that, they're not going to have a mom.
Right.
And then I did do that, but it didn't actually end up being a selfish thing, because now I know how to take care of myself. I'm happy. Like, my kids have happy, they do like yoga, and like they're starting out life a lot.
They're doing great.
With some a lot of like things that I didn't have. And just like everybody's happier. Yeah. I mean, and it seems selfish at first, but when you put yourself first, everything in life just gets better. It's counterintuitive, I feel like, for women and moms. Yeah,
because you have that mom guilt. Like, I can't be in the hospital for that many days. What am I going to do with him? And you just feel bad. But
and now it's like, nope, I have to go to a meeting tonight, or I have to go to the gym, or I have to go to yoga. Sorry.
Right.
But
I think I believe there's only 2 times you change in life. Mm-hmm. Either inspiration or desperation.
I believe that wholeheartedly.
So I beg people, I'm like, please just get inspired before the universe makes you desperate, because it will humble you so quick.
Yeah, it does.
I've lost everything I own 3 times, been to prison, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's not the way to go.
Yeah.
But it was because you think you were bullheaded. I was rough.
It's the feather, then the brick, then the semi from God.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you get healthy enough to feel the feather, then life is like, that's the inspiration thing. Okay, keep going forward.
Exactly. Yeah. So are you in a good place now?
I am. And I don't remember the last time I was able to say that, honestly.
Yeah, you said it very fast.
Yeah,
so
I am.
I believe it.
Your subconscious mind believes it.
Yeah, I do. You know, I was going to one place for mental health,
Okay.
and they did nothing wrong, but it just didn't work with my schedule. It
Yeah.
just truly didn't. And so I thought, you know what? I'm just going to go to my family doctor, which
Mhm.
they're phenomenal too. But when all of this happened, I'm like, I really, really, really have to go to someone who specializes in mental health. And I did, and I found amazing people. I found an amazing doctor, an amazing counselor. And I look back now, and I would make up reasons. Like, I would come up with excuses to not go to those appointments. Because I'm like, meh,
Yep.
I have other things to do. I have another obligation. Nope, that's a priority now. Like,
Yeah.
I go.
It has to be.
It has to be. Because I'm good now.
Yep.
I'm good. And that
Yeah.
is just, like, the best thing. That's just so amazing to say. Because
so amazing to see that,
Yeah.
you know, after you had like a real life situation where you were locked up. Like, that's when it gets serious. Like, now there's documentation and, like, Jesus, like, it's heavy.
it is.
When you lose your personal freedom, or
Yeah.
you lose, custody of your children, or you lose something like
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's the bottom.
Yeah.
I'm just so glad that you are being open with sharing your story here, but not only here, because this in the end doesn't matter. What matters is how you feel about yourself when you lay down and get up in the morning.
Right.
And that's all going to come by the way you treat yourself. And just, like, making those appointments a priority,
Yeah.
like, that's where you're going to take all your wins at,
Yeah.
you know, because that trickles out into your life.
Yeah.
You're building something there in those appointments with that support system of professionals. And yeah, it'll be life-changing forevermore.
Yeah. Yeah,
It already
exactly.
is, because you are approaching wanting to speak about it. When
Yeah.
before you're like, I've got everything under control. Like,
Right.
Yeah.
Or I was ashamed.
Yeah.
And that's the stigma I want to change. I don't want people to feel ashamed. There's nothing to be ashamed about. There's truly
Yeah.
not.
And that's what was holding you back.
Yeah, it was because, you grow up and you're told one thing, and that's no fault of anybody's. They grew up hearing that too. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So
Can
it's
you
just,
can you
have
give me,
to-
like, not saying anyone said that one thing, but, like, when you say you grew up and you were told one thing, can you give me an example?
just that they have no reason to be sad.
Mm.
I heard that a lot.
Yeah.
There's the ego basically is like the problem, and some of us have like major ego problems in life, and I've always heard ego is edging God out is like
Yeah.
the acronym for it.
Oh wow.
And it's just, I don't know, once you get into your ego and you're feeding it, then you just become more and more selfish and more distant from the things that matter in life, I guess.
Yeah. But I can also say too, after that whole experience, it changed the way other people in my inner circle viewed mental health. It changed the way that they understood it.
Like other people, like those people that you might have said, like, that you might have heard,
Yeah.
you have nothing to be sad about.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, they get it now.
And, that's what it takes.
It does. You have to see someone you love go through it, or you have to go through it yourself, because if you don't, then it is, I can understand them not getting it.
A lot of people in my family are like, oh, crackheads never change. And then they see me get sober and they're like, what just happened?
Right.
Like,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you're right.
And it's crazy to think that something so good came out of such a bad situation. I truly thought that, like, this is it. Like, I'm
Dude.
never going to recover from this. And now I'm better than I've ever been. I'm happier than I've ever been. I'm healthier, and I'm educating people. And I
Yeah.
want them to know, and even our kids, like, I want them to grow up knowing that they don't have to be perfect.
Kids don't do what you tell them to do.
Yeah.
They do what they see you
That's
do.
exactly right. Yeah.
It's pattern recognition.
Mhm.
Aristotle said, give me a child until he's 7 and I'll show you the man. Because whatever happens to a child up until about 7 years old is what they go into adulthood with, unless they're programmed for success in between that 7-year-old mark and 18. Unless you're a parent that is, like, building them up, programming them intentionally, whatever happened from, like, 0 to 7, That's
it.
going.
So when you're like, you're like a sponge when you're 0 to 7, and then I think when you're like 7 to 16, you're
Rebellious.
mirroring everybody around you, like whatever you call it, copycatting kind of. So whatever is around you is what you're probably gonna do when you're an adult. Yeah, that's like basically what my coaching subconscious integration is about. It's like, how do we change that programming that happened before you were 7
Right.
and consciously live life instead of being on autopilot all the time, like most of us are 90% of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so valuable. And you said taking this tragedy and turning it into something good. And like, I'm a very spiritual person, and I believe the universe always gives me exactly what I need when I need it. So like, I was in here by myself setting up today, and I kind of just was like, had the lights turned down low, didn't want anyone like coming in. And a woman I have as a follower on Facebook, she has been fighting cancer, and she came in here. She knocked on the door, and like, first time I ever met her in person, because she just follows me online. And she told me who she was, and that she had just got her PET scan back, and that her cancer is like pretty much disappeared.
Wow.
After she couldn't get into the Cleveland clinic. And so she like started working on her mindset, her life and everything, and her cancer is like dissipating.
Wow.
So she came here to thank me because I inspire her a lot, and I gave her my favorite book, which is Creative Mind by Ernest Holmes, because I believe everything starts in the mind first, and that's our thoughts create our reality.
Yeah.
So she took the book and she gave me this bracelet, and what you just said about trash turned into treasure reminded me of it, because it's plastic beads made from recycled plastic out of the ocean, and she said this is trash made into treasure, and she said that's what you've done with your life. So and then that just aligns with what you said.
Yeah.
But that's just a little like synchronicity moment for me right here in this moment in time to know, like, okay, you're doing the right thing. This interview has went well. It's like the universe rewarding me, God rewarding me, you know?
Yeah.
Were you at the women's circle? I can't remember.
No.
Okay. That would be really awesome if you came to the women's circle.
Have you done yoga?
I've not.
You should.
And yoga.
I do it.
I would love to do yoga, honestly.
You should. She's the teacher.
I'm not coordinated at all.
It's
me
not
neither.
about that.
Okay.
If you saw me up there, girl, you'd be like, "Oh, I'm gonna be fine."
I'll just stand by you the whole time, Geno.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. It's so cool. Everybody's like, just like mental health. Like you don't know who has it and who has what under control, which nobody really has it under control. But then you go in yoga and you see like every walk of life.
Yeah.
It's
like
so nice.
A practice to connect to your mind, body, and soul, because we walk around in this like overstimulated like nervous system that's just like and you can't even hear, like, our heart intuition is so much stronger than our brain, but we're just like stuck in our head all the time. When you quiet it and you meditate and you do yoga, then you have this strong intuition about life where, like, I know if I like somebody or I don't, like, because I'm so connected to myself now.
Tapped in, tuned in, and turned on. Like, because when you can get still in the stillness of yourself through meditation and yoga and things like that, and having a spiritual practice all together, like whatever that turns into, because everybody's is a little different.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be like 50 minutes of silence, humming or whatever. It's whatever you want it to be, whatever you find peace within yourself in.
Yeah.
And that allows you to identify incoming signals, because everything at a molecular level, quantum physics shows us that everything's just vibrating. You, your energy, your thoughts, your life, all that. Same with me, her, everybody, the table, the camera, everything is just vibrating at a frequency. And that's why it is formed the way it is. That's why our thoughts travel the way they do. That's why when you go in the mall and you have your back turned and you're like, someone's staring at me, you turn around and I'll be damned, there's a creepy guy around the corner staring right at you. Why did you feel that? Because it's energy.
Yeah.
And it's a strong energetic pulse, like radiating into you. That's it. It's everything's frequency. And that's as simple as the energy spiritual part of it has to be. It's just knowing that like like energy attracts like energy. There's a reason you were drawn into this podcast.
Yeah.
Because like something told you like, oh, this is where I can say my piece at.
Yeah.
And I'll be safe.
Exactly.
And then you get here and like my heroin story and her alcohol like it's no different than your exact story.
Right.
Something to like kind of as a measure of how I'm doing is like look around at what people are around me. And like right now I have the most successful, most like positive people I've ever had around me. So like I'm like, yeah, I'm doing good. If you look around and everybody's like on drugs, then that's you.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So. You have resonated.
Water rises to its own level.
Yes, it absolutely does. Yeah, any final thoughts before we close this out?
I just want people to understand that there doesn't have to be a reason why. If you're feeling bad, if you're having, suicidal thoughts, you have to say something. You have to. You're worth it. Your family's worth it. Your people will show up for you.
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter how many there are. They will show up for you.
Yep. And there will be new people come.
Yeah, there will.
Yep.
There will. You will find so much love and so much grace if you just say something, because people want to help you.
Yeah.
You don't have to be perfect, because you're perfect the way you are.
And the reason why is much deeper than the human mind can even understand, which is not to say that like to be a victim of life, but like epigenetics is a new kind of wave of thinking of truth that everything is handed down for generations. And we store like 14 generations of genetic coding in our body. So you could be in some ways, if you're like, Holocaust generational survivor kind of thing, like they have proof that there is actual
instilled trauma.
Yeah, in your genes and your DNA.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's, and that's just energy.
Yeah.
Memories and instilled memories and thought patterns and emotions are just memories traveling along with the next kin to come,
And whatever power you believe in, doesn't matter, just a spiritual power can reprogram every single piece of DNA in your body. Like the power of spiritual power is infinite. So it's like there's always an answer when you're open to it.
All that is and never will be, no matter what you call it, it's way more freaking powerful than you.
Absolutely.
And it feels good to just let go and let God.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it.
Yeah.
Yep. And if not, he is still good.
That's it. All the time. Well, I'm glad you came on.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for coming. And I think this is going to be a really good episode.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Great job.